If you've listened to the show before, I'm sure you know by now that I talk a lot about training from a program design perspective and a very kind of technical analytic, approach. In other words, sort of the X's and O's, if you will, of an athlete's inputs. However, this is certainly not to say that I don't understand and appreciate the power of a person's mind and its role in all kinds of high-level performance. Frankly, it really doesn't matter how physically capable a person is. If their mind is unwilling, unconfident, or, frankly, like in any way, reluctant, it will manifest in the body via their actions, basically resulting in a subpar performance, right? A good analogy could be, it doesn't really matter if you're driving a Ferrari if you're afraid to hit the gas pedal. So we have some athletes like that. And, on the other hand, if we do have an athlete in their mind and psychology is oriented towards achieving their peak performance, and they're highly committed and maximally motivated, they're going to inevitably butt up against their ceiling of physical performance potential. And I see this sort of thing a lot with like the youth athletes that I work with. Like, it's a whole lot easier to, help direct or like steer a highly motivated kid who has the willingness to work and wants to put their best effort in, than it is a kid who really isn't motivated and really doesn't want to be there, right? Like trying to motivate like a lackluster athlete is sort of the equivalent of like paddling upstream, where you work really hard and you don't really get anywhere. And I don't really think anyone will argue against that. And I think it's because we all sort of have this fundamental understanding of how our psychology dictates what our physiology does. In other words, the body listens to the mind. The Fitness Movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com. So before I mention how frustrating it can be to motivate a lackluster athlete, to the point where if someone isn't motivated to do something, I don't really think it's my job as a coach to motivate them, right? Like, not everyone is motivated to be the best at something or to frankly compete at all. So forcing my expectations as a coach onto my athletes, or maybe like my competitive lens onto my athletes, is only going to lead to frustration on my half, and then probably like resentment from them for me, and like an inappropriate program. So that's one case. But what about the athletes who are super motivated and they do want to be the best at something? Should coaches almost exclusively focus on developing an athlete's psychology and then just simply sort of like directing them and the athlete's efforts towards sound training? No, I don't think so. But why not? Because you cannot execute quality training without developing an athlete's mindset. And at a certain point, mental toughness isn't about just the willingness to, go deep into the pain cave. It becomes about having the diligence to involve other people to, help you work your unique limitations. For example, enlisting help from your families and friends to help you to organize for an event that you're doing, like an upcoming competition. It might be like changing social networks, right? Getting people who have similar goals and lifestyle habits that you want in your social network. It could be literally up and moving your life, right? If you want to go to maybe a training camp, or certainly it could be like hiring a coach, right? And really all that stuff kind of comes down to ultimately just like doubling down on the processes that allow you to raise your performance ceiling. Now, these things are super analytical and rather detail oriented, like a lot of the content that I put out. And all those details I've seen time and time again, they stack up upon each other, and they're ultimately going to change an athlete's mind and body. And I think we can see this in veteran athletes. Veteran athletes are mentally tough because they've spent a decade plus in the trenches doing long, hard training progressions with the sole intent of becoming as sharp as possible in their ability to execute maximal effort work when it actually matters the most, like out on the competition floor. And for everyone, especially competitive athletes, and especially people who are really in tune with their performance, right? Repeatedly subjecting yourself to challenging, purposeful training changes your body and your mind. And those two things are inseparable, right? You can't just do like 8, 10, 12, maybe up to like 15 training sessions a week without it changing your psychology. Like obviously that's going to impact your body, but it's going to have a profound impact on your mind as well. And this is the thing, not just in the week that you're actually doing it, like your mood, your alertness, your endorphins, like that kind of stuff. No, like the change that happens because of the work that you're putting in is permanent. It's a lifelong change. And that's why I want my competitive athletes with the mindset, and I'm talking about the ones who like want to be the best, right? The people that have the mindset, like the only thing that matters in my day-to-day is going to be like my next session and executing that to the best of my ability in that moment. Because if you can recommit to doing that, right? Not everybody can, but like for those people who do want to be the best, if you can recommit to doing that and not worrying about if you'll, get a boyfriend next month, or if you'll pursue a career in nutrition next year, or, the ifs, all the stuff that you could be thinking about and kind of preparing for, if you can literally just recommit to that, committing to doing this one thing and doing it to the very best that you can, you will never be the same person again. Again, in the same way that like your bodily tissues, right? Your muscle, your connective tissue, your skin, your joints, everything's going to adapt from consistent exposures to whatever the thing is that you're trying to get really good at. So does your psychology. For example, the way in which you mentally frame painful metabolic work and how you prepare your mind for, those grueling training sessions, that adapts as you need it. And here's the thing, if you don't have to be mentally tough, you won't be. Peak performance can only be achieved through maximal motivation. Maximal exercise can only be achieved through the ingrained memory of 1,000 times that athlete has recommitted to the thing. So when I get people and they're like, how do you build this like incredible mental resiliency and like motivation that lasts for the athletes that they see that has it? You have to come in every single day and remind yourself of how you want to show up to your next training session and execute to the best of your ability. Why? Because the body listens to the mind. Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just started listening to the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while, I would encourage you to rate and review the show. And lastly, the best thing that you can do to support our work is also the best thing that you can do for your performance. And that is by hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.